That joke isn't funny anymore. Available on Amazon and everywhere. Hey guys, welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast on the Lions of Liberty Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and I'm very happy to be joined for a second time. This is the second appearance on my podcast, and it's been a while since I talked to him. He's a bud, and he's also the director of Terra Firma Teaching Alliance. Please
Terra
give it
Firma?
up.
Terra
Fuck
Firma?
me. Fuck
It's okay.
me.
No, it's
It's not Terra Firma anymore, Paul.
it's Terra Firma. Yeah,
It's Terra
actually,
Firma now.
yeah,
Let
that
me-
could be better. I don't know. Could be better.
Let me that was my branding wizardry there. Okay, guys, let me correct myself in real time. I fucked up. His name is Paul Rossi. He's great, and he's also the director of Terra Firma Teaching Alliance. And now I will let Paul explain what that is, because if I try to do it, I'm just going to mess up even more. So.
It's fine. It's fine. You've done enough, Lou. Now, we're a national network, and actually international. Now we have teachers in Canada, in Britain, France, and we're traditional teachers, both pedagogically and ideologically, which is, and our slogan is no ideology if we can help it. Pedagogy, not ideology. So we are very informal support network. We have meetings twice a week. We do some recruiting and placement. We help teachers who are in difficult situations find employment at a better school. Now, these are public teachers, private teachers, even some homeschooling teachers that have had to deal with what I had to go through in 2021 and before that, which is encountering all intense flavors of CRT, anti-racism, gender ideology pushed onto kids by teachers that have an axe to grind, certain agendas. Administrators have the same thing going on. So, we could touch on a lot of these issues, the state of education today as I see it, some of the developments that have happened since you saw me last, but we can go in any direction you want. I'm wide open. And I'm actually now not teaching. I was teaching for a year at Vertex Partnership Academies. It's a charter school in the Bronx. It's a great school. And I learned a lot there, but I decided to leave New York. I'm now a resident of New Hampshire and doing some work with the Free State Project up here. So, and some of the parent groups up here. So that's kind of my situation.
Well, I'm glad that that you've been, finding, work and you're doing this stuff as well. Because I remember back when we first talked, I think there was I forget if you had kind of warned me that there was like a big cancellation happening or something like that. Or something big in your life was coming up in your career. And I remember just thinking about, I mean, I'm rather fortunate in that, I get to talk about the stuff that I talk about and believe, because I get to make videos and do comedy and do stand up and all that, where there's an entertainment aspect. I'm an entertainer, and there's an audience out there who likes my stuff, and thankfully I've been able to go as long as I have because of that. But then when I think about like someone like like yourself, who was you were teaching, and it was like being canceled can just completely upend your whole world. And I was always thinking like, well, shit, what do you guys do? If if you have this big falling out with a school, because how would a new school be reluctant to bring you on if he's a troublemaker, or he's he's a racist, he's a fascist, and all the all the words that nobody would want to be want to be labeled.
Yeah, and that is a big problem for a lot of our teachers. I mean, we've had teachers that have gone at various degrees, been outed as dissidents of one form or another. I don't want to say we're like Poland in 1946, but it's not good because it has professional consequences, it has social consequences in their town. So it's a form of exile, professional and personal and social exile that people go through, which is why I'm thinking about getting into comedy, Lou. Do you think you can help? No. Um,
I was
that's
gonna
great.
ask you to help me with comedy. I was gonna be like, "Hey, could you help me out?" Paul actually was
You don't
nice
need
enough.
any help from me. You're doing very well.
I did a show in Maine, in Ogunquit, and Paul was so kind to, make the drive up and to see me open for, the great, Scott Thompson, so I really appreciate that. Anyone who puts
Great show.
dollars and miles behind, coming to see me, I'm very flattered and
Well,
humbled.
I don't wanna pump you up too much, Luke, because there's not much going on in New Hampshire, honestly, so I was like when I saw you buzzed on, I was like, "Oh my god, I can go see Lou Perez." Been meaning to see I've never seen his act, so I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get in the Jeep and head over there," so, yeah. No, was really a lot of fun to see you, and, you struck, like, just, like, the right edgy tone for that crowd too, like, with the whatever adjustments you've been making, and it was really funny, um, and you had a lot of people laughing, which is great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, with Scott, I did 20 cities opening for him, and it really is amazing how you go a few hundred miles east or west, and the same material that you did 200 miles before might not hit, might not land. So
Mm.
that's obviously like learning it's a learning experience there, and a profound education as far as how to deal with different crowds.
Well, generally, like, the crowd was very gay, like, it's a gay act, right? Like,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you're
yeah,
opening and, I knew even 2017, 2018, I had gay colleagues, male, you know, white male, maybe not even white, but sort of, but, like, gay colleagues that were like, "This has gone too far. I'm sick of this stuff," and they would, like being gay, they have great wit and style, and they would and sense of humor, and they send me these really spicy memes, and I'm like, "Wow," but on the other hand, in their professional life, they would totally toe the line and, sometimes run some of these DEI courses, so, like, there's this really divided, bifurcated reality that they're living in,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like
I don't
so,
know.
yeah. So like being on tour with Scott, and Scott was doing uh, his iconic character, Buddy Cole, who's it's just a great character. And the kids in the hall, I mean, they had a very much like a punk rock ethos, and I think very much with Scott being very openly and out and gay. I mean, what he brought to them, their comedy, was like a real like edginess and danger, and it was like kind of the first time uh a lot of the themes that come up in his comedy were expressed, and you were able to see on
Well, I remember
TV.
the art class thing. Remember the Kids in the Hall,
Yeah.
the famous art class clip, and that was when PC was big in the '90s, and, like, it's just come back even more powerful, but that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, so I grew up, and I sort of like, turn around and I'm like, "Oh, either, that's where I got my, my sense of humor, or whatever sense of humor it's innately attracted to, like, what Scott and the kids in the hall were doing, so we got along really well. And yeah, for me, I mean, all the like the gay men in my life, especially like, the older gay guys, always fun, always witty. Nothing is off limits. Andrew Sullivan, uh, will often talk about on his podcast, what it was like kind of in the 80s and 90s, uh, in the gay community, where, you have young men dropping dead all over the place. And they would do like these really dark, like comedic performances and stuff. And it was like a big, really using comedy as a fuck you to this, horrific disease that was just, wiping out
Yeah.
their community. Um, and it's wild to, when you it's sort of like, how things have changed, where it's like, okay, you could be out and gay, be as flamboyant as you want, but if you even, if you even step over the line, it might have something that might be a little right wing or
Mm.
centrist from 20 years ago, you need to tone that down. You need to tamp that down.
Mhm.
So it's a
Yeah.
really funny, yeah, that whole idea.
Hmm.
So with the Terra Firma Teaching Alliance, uh, is it? I've heard a lot about kind of like teaching, like wanting kids to do more stuff outdoors and more play, more free play and stuff like that. Is that where you guys are?
You know what? Not really. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. I think we're more like what there's really sort of let me maybe take it away from the woke stuff or the obviously woke stuff of DEI and cancel culture and anti-racism, blah blah blah. There's this other trend in education, which is progressive pedagogy, which
Mhm.
comes from John Dewey, and it's this idea that really goes back to Rousseau that the child is naturally inquisitive, naturally curious, and that the way to teach a child in the best way is to use exploratory learning, it's called constructivism. You give them a problem-based learning, and then they, in the struggling through it, they, they're goal-oriented and they learn along the way with a purpose in mind. And it's sort of the opposite of what I think is often a mythological, um, way of looking at education, traditional education. When people hear traditional education, it's like you can feel the hairs rise on their arm, right? Because you think of, the guy from Ferris Bueller, whatever, droning on, about, dates and names, and you're supposed to just write it all down and regurgitate it, right? And both of those things are bad. And that's not actually when we talk about traditional education, that's not actually what works, and it's not actually what we've evolved to, the research bears out. So we're generally very pro direct instruction, which also sounds kind of scary, or explicit instruction. But what it doesn't mean that it's simply, what Paulo Freire would call the banking model of education. It's not dumping information into kids and having them regurgitate on a test. It's a constant, when it's done right, it's a constant back and forth where you're constantly checking for understanding
Mm.
with the group. And so when you watch a direct instruction class, and I learned how to do this at Vertex, which in 2022 and 23, um, because I just never really taught how to do it right in, my fancy $60,000 a year private school. They didn't really care about this, but it's a long way to say there's a really intense back and forth constantly between the teacher and the students. So the teacher is constantly calling on students. They have their hands up. The attention is demanded, and they're not allowed to sort of be listless in the classroom. They're constantly challenged, even if it's just, you say something, you ask somebody to what did I, and then you ask a question in the question form, like, oh, and what did Henry VIII do? Oh, okay. And then, so when it's done right, there is so much engagement going on in the classroom and a reward system. So, we had a merit-based system at Vertex where the students, they had, tangible positive feedback on their participation and some negative feedback, but really the ratio is supposed to be like 20% negative of students not paying attention. It's a very mild rebuke of some sort to, 80% of it should be positive reinforcement. And, to my amazement, I wasn't very good at it at first because I was kind of a newbie at this stuff, but it really does work. And when it's done right, there are plenty of examples where, um, unfortunately not enough that has been tried because there's a whole institutional backlash against it or obstacle to it. But where it's been done well, you see definite results in the scores. Like there's no doubt.
Yeah, my son's about to start kindergarten, my oldest, and uh I'm not necessarily I'm worried about that. I think well, probably the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is that I mean he was a COVID baby. Both my kids are
Mm,
COVID babies, and I have the type of job where I work from home a lot unless I'm on set shooting something or going to perform. So we've seen each other so much. Like I think in these 5 years I've had my son, I may have spent more time with him than my dad spent with me,
Mm,
like over the maybe the past 20, who knows, 20 years. Because
right,
my dad worked 6 days a week and he was off on Sundays, and you know how it is as you get
yeah,
older, you start doing more shit, more stuff. So I think is probably I might be a little clingy, I guess, to my son. So the idea of, sort of losing him for 8 hours a day or whatever it is. I mean, we've sort of, inched our way towards that because he was going like to school, like, half time, half days. Um, but yeah, I think it's, kind of concerned about that. But then also, you know, hearing about all these different methods of teaching, and it's like, okay, which one are they doing? And will I be, I'm going to have to definitely do some supplementation no matter what.
mhm.
But I just hope that, he's not being, like, taught something that's irreversible, no, but, like, kind of
Yeah,
aversive, you know what I mean?
I know, but, it's yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think one of the things, I'm not a parent, I don't have kids, sort of like, it's a cliche, but the teachers say like, "Oh, my students are my
Oh, my
kids,"
kids, yeah.
which is really scary, and there's sometimes it's taken to an absurd extreme, and it's really damaging and awful, like um recently there was a Chicago Teachers Union spokesperson that said like, "Oh, the parents are worried that that we own their kids." And like, "Well, guess what? We do."
Yeah,
It's like, so anyway, but I learned a lot, like, about myself teaching over 15 years that, I learned to sort of not to be a progressive from teaching. Like, when you realize, like, it actually makes things worse and doesn't work and doesn't help the kids and
yeah,
raises their anxiety and all these other things. Um, but I think if you have a good relationship with your children, how many kids do you have?
just 2. 2
2?
little
Okay.
boys, yeah.
You gotta pump those numbers up, man. Those are some rookie numbers. Uh,
They are. Yeah, well, I guess we started a little late, and then, the both of them, uh, were various stages of just, like, bad sleep
oh, yeah.
where, like, if they were better if they had been better sleepers, throughout, their years on this earth, they probably would have tricked mommy and daddy into making
Okay.
some more. Um, but yeah, the younger one, in particular, he was
Wow.
kind of a nightmare for a little bit. And yeah, it's
God bless you.
or maybe we should have just done it. Maybe we should just do it. I don't know. But then that involves me, kind of tampering with my wife's biology and stuff, and birth control and figuring
Like
stuff
pregnant,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, which you know, relationships are built on trust, and the idea of your husband, uh, you know, sort of rigging the system so you get pregnant. I don't know how she would take that. I don't know if, like,
Like a thing where you, like, cut a hole in the condom or something?
something
Like
like that. Yeah.
mm,
Well, it's funny because you always hear about, women who have trapped men by getting pregnant. I've
right.
never heard the reverse of, like, a guy trapping a woman by getting
I know.
pregnant.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. I have
Yeah,
a
I think because the state would, they can just run away and have the state aid to families with dependent children just
Yeah,
take your place. So it's not like you're even sealing the deal.
right.
You're just yeah.
Well, there's a funny thing that happens especially when couples are trying to get pregnant, uh, where, like, they spend so much of their adult life trying not to get pregnant, and then they find out kind of like it's not as easy to get pregnant
Oh, yeah.
as we've
Yeah.
been taught. And I had this one bit where, um, where when I was single, I was so afraid of getting women pregnant that I would wear a condom, pull out, and then, immediately jizz into a fire. So it would just destroy.
Yeah.
I said,
Uh-huh.
but it was a little weird though, where, part of my foreplay was me trying to build a fucking fire in the
Yeah.
bedroom. The woman's like,
Yeah.
"What's
Get a
that all
rocket
about?"
stove and just poke in one of those holes and just yeah, because you don't know where those little swimmers can go, like, they could find their way, you know?
It's so yeah,
Especially yours, super potent
oh,
comedian.
dude,
Yeah.
mine are out there, they have part-time jobs and stuff. Yeah.
Deadbeat sperm. They're not
Yeah,
are they
the deadbeat sperm. It's funny about we're probably going down a different, avenue, but, I know you don't have kids, but, it is interesting to see, women who are going to, like, sperm donors and, like, their checklist about, like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
they're looking for, what they're selecting for, so if you're like a 21-year-old swimmer at Stanford, like
Mhm.
everybody all these, everybody wants your sperm.
Yeah.
Um, and,
Mental
uh
level IQ,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, and there part of it is something I was thinking about. I was like, well, there's another, characteristic of that donor, which is you also want sperm from the type of guy who doesn't want anything to do with his offspring. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
It's
that's right.
it's like so you're choosing, you're saying to evolution and mother nature, "Yeah, I want God the type of, man who would abandon me, with this baby." But you probably have enough money, I guess, as a
But genetically
lady.
genetically, though, you're gonna pass that on to the kid, right? So, like, are
That's
you
what I'm
gonna
thinking.
create kid that's gonna abandon so, like, you may never see your own grandchildren,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? So that could be a negative,
Like, he's a winner, like, on the diving board, off the diving board, but in life, he's just a quitter in his relationships. He's like, "I'm outta here. I'm just like my dad. I'm
yeah.
dumping and pumping, dumping, and getting the fuck out."
Yep, it's a plus.
Yeah. Well, with that yeah, I'll try to shoehorn this in. Uh, uh, I started watching, was a movie Gattaca on one of the flights that I had recently. Great movie. But it got me thinking about, this sort of subject about being able to choose, what characteristics your baby has. And when it comes to, education, I mean, with your experience teaching kids, are there just like some kids that no matter what you do are just not going to get it? I mean, you were a math teacher. I mean, which um, I remember when I was in school, I did awesome through all the way through pre-calculus, and then when it got to calculus, uh, completely sucked. And I blame
Yeah,
it. I do blame it a little. I do blame it a good bit on the teacher, because the teacher I had for pre-calculus was fantastic. But there was just it just seemed like there was something inherently like sort of this ceiling that I couldn't get through, when it came to mathematics, that other friends of mine seem to have just, were born with it.
that's the late that tends to be everyone sort of has sticking points at different places in the sort of arc of math. But that story where I did really well up until X, and then when I hit X, like, I was completely lost. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, it is the teacher. The spiral curriculum in math that they do, that they've done for a while now, it's like it kinda hops fr some of it tries to bring in stuff from previous years, but a lot of times there are conceptual leaps, and you're constantly changing teachers. Once you get off on the wrong foot with somebody, it's very hard to get back. But do I think there are sure, there's natural people are more or less gifted, more or less inclined for non-environmental reasons to do well or not. Um, but as your job as a teacher is you wanna whoever the kid is and wherever they are in the sequence, and there's a lot of differentiation now, a lot because of COVID and just because of just bad education. First, you may have one kid in the class at 5th grade level, another kid at 8th grade level,
Mm.
another kid at 10th grade level, but, like, you wanna move them up, but, like, you wanna move them the key is, like, find out where that kid is, and then get them to move the needle from wherever they are to whatever the next topic is. Whatever's the thing that they have that's in that sweet spot of, flow. Can I give them the opportunity to succeed at that thing, which was their sticking point, to where they can have that sort of I get it experience, and then hopefully you can get some momentum and they can make some progress
Mhm.
towards the next thing. And a lot of the futility and learned helplessness around math, and there's so much of it. It's really sad. It can be it can be dealt with. It can be tackled, but it takes a lot of for a teacher, it takes a lot of time and one-on-one effort. The kid kind of has to sometimes meet you halfway. It's nothing is guaranteed. Um, but a lot of it's just like relentless positive attitude I've
Mhm.
learned, and you just can't. Um, when I started teaching, I think I just assumed that everyone would want to learn. Like, I don't know, it's just
It's like,
stupid.
why else would these kids come into this
Like,
class?
it's
Why would they
like
spend so much
right.
time here? Why would
Um,
their parents be spending
yeah.
all this money if not, you know?
Mm. Right. So you have to learn how to motivate a captive audience, really,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you kind of know a little about.
Yeah. So what is calculus?
Oh
Like,
wow. Oh my God.
what the
I love
fuck is
that.
it?
What
Yeah.
the fuck is it?
It's been
Oh my
dude,
God.
it's been so long since I mean, we're talking I'm coming up on my 25th year graduation from high school, so it's been a long time
Yeah.
since I've done calculus, and one of well, w the one sort of, like, memory that sticks out or group of memories is, again, talking about how some people are, inherently just gifted with this. One of my friends growing up, Mark, uh he's excellent at math,
Mhm.
and his dad was a mathematics major, and he worked for the JP Morgan Chase in some capacity, and, he would tutor the both of us a little bit, and by tutoring, it was me going over there and, Mark understanding calculus and me not understanding it, and Mark's Armenian, and his dad's from, the Armenian diaspora, I think he's from, Lebanon, and he used to get so pissed off, not at me, but at the Catholics that were teaching me because I went to a Catholic
Oh yeah.
school.
Oh wow.
Like, basically, like, saying some version of the, "What the fuck are these Catholic," we didn't curse, but, like, "What the fuck are these
Right.
Catholics doing? You don't know what an integer is? How do you not know what an integer is? These damn Catholics."
r- Right.
Um, so my, sort of my experience of calculus is, sort of wrapped up in this really, you know, uh, funny, almost like comedic character.
Yeah.
But my buddy Mark Boyagin's dad ridiculing the church for what they
Yeah.
were doing here. But yeah, yeah, calculus. I mean, what is it?
Well, I could give you the textbook definition that you wouldn't make any sense.
Or
But
or, or for
so
me,
they're
for
really
me to
two parts.
understand it. Yeah.
Okay, so there are like two parts to calculus. Think of it. The thing that I like, well, generally the thing I like about it, it has this internal unity. Not only, pre-calculus can be a lot of different subjects and trigonometry and matrices, and they don't really cohere. Pre-calculus is just a bucket you put a lot of stuff in. Calculus really coheres, and if you can see it as a universe in itself really well, and it has this internal unity and form. Uh, and that's kind of magical. Like when students actually get what makes it almost mystical, it has a mystical element to it. It's kind of gives me shivers to think about it. But uh, there's two parts to it that fit together. So think of it as like two halves that meld, and the first half is called differentiation, and the other half is integration. And the fundamental theorem of calculus unites these two things. And what are these two things? Okay, so differentiation is how your car knows how fast it's going. Let's just think about it like that. What is what is speed? How do you calculate the speed at a particular moment in time, not between two moments in time, but at a snapshot in time? Like if I take a picture of a car moving, I can't tell how fast it's going from one picture, right? I need two pictures, and I need to measure the distance that it's traveled in an interval of time. And then I need to, figure out how fast it's going over that interval. but that's essentially an average rate of change between two moments. If you compress that time interval right down to a single moment in time, which is, we actually can't even really conceive of a moment in time. We only can compare time to other times, but this is sort of the mystical part of differentiation. You can actually determine exactly how fast something is going at a particular moment. And when you try to do it in the conventional way, maybe you remember like finding the slope of a graph.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you graph the distance and time and you try to find the slope of, if you're accelerating, it'll be a curve, right? Or speeding up. So, you would try to find 2 points and then you calculate y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to calculate what's the average rate of change between those 2 points. But when you get down to 1 point, what happens is the denominator goes to 0 and there's no way to calculate it. But what differentiation says, and it's almost like a paradox. You're like, how can this even work? Is that if you make that interval infinitesimally small at the same rate that you make the interval in distance infinitesimally small,
Is that the asymptote? Is that what it's
it's
called?
it's sort of related, but it's called a limit. So a limit is when you get very, very close to something. So it is kind of like an estimate. It's like you're very, very close to something. It's almost as if you're there, but you're not quite. And this kind of fuzzy thing, people are like, what do you mean? Like an infinitesimal? How can you quantify something that's infinitely close to something, but not there yet? But when you do this, you do the math of limits, the things all cancel out and you actually wind up with the instantaneous speed. And that's the rate of change. And so that's called instantaneous rate of change. And that doesn't apply to cars. It applies to, business, calculating the profit of a business. And then you get into a whole financial thing. So it has many different applications, and that's differentiation. And then integration is, you can actually get distance from the area under the curve of rate of change. So this relation, like the area under of a curve, can actually take you. You can reverse engineer the distance something's traveled based on the speed of it over time, and that's integration. And so, like, those things are related in a kind of a top-down stack where you can actually take multiple rates of change, and you could take integers of integers of integers, integrals of integrals of integrals. But like, we need to, if I haven't lost your audience by now, maybe, I can if you let me keep talking about it.
No, no, it's super interesting. And I don't know if this is sort of the part of the mythology, but I had heard that like Isaac Newton like invented it over a weekend because he needed to like figure something out. So he just
Yeah,
invented the
it was a throwaway for him, because he was more of an alchemist, actually. Like, most of his stuff was sort of mystical medieval stuff. Like, he was trying to get lead out of gold, or turn gold, gold from lead, and like the actual stuff that turned out to be incredibly valuable was just like a hobby.
Well, I love that idea of, this insane genius
Yeah,
going towards the mythological, trying to like, basically kind of go towards the spiritual. And as he's on that route, he invents stuff that is totally practical and that's going to help shape technology and,
yeah,
for hundreds and hundreds of years.
yeah. It's you would never have rocketry without it. You never have airplanes. Like, none of that stuff works without it. It's pretty incredible. Got to give you got to give Leibniz. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but give him
Uh-huh.
some credit too, because he was on a parallel track and he did a lot. Um, he basically kind of discovered it in parallel too.
Mm. I always wonder, and I'm going to call you a math guy because
Yeah,
you're a
but
math guy.
I don't have advanced degree in math. Like, I only know enough to teach. So, like, I never learned linear algebra. So when I meet real math people, like, I'm just like, you're not a math person, so whatever. But
Yeah.
you can call me a math person if you want.
Well, I always, uh, I wonder, sort of like how, math people, and I would probably put like, physicists in this too. I mean, that they're working with, like a Richard Feynman, just like how they view the world. How I just imagine it must be very different than how I view the world. As me, I'm a comedy mind, if you will, and they have a math mind, uh, and I wonder if there's sort of, yeah, just a particular way that they see the world. Because 'cause I'm like,
Yeah.
right now I'm watching a documentary about Phil Collins that was done on the, YouTube, page Drumeo, which is great, and
Hmm.
Drumeo is really, really brilliant. One of the things that they do this whole series that's wonderful, where they bring, well-known professional drummers, to the studio and have them play drums to songs they've never heard before. So
Hmm.
they'll play the song for them without the drums, and they'll come up with their own drums, and then they'll listen to the original and see how it shapes
Oh,
up,
fascinating. Yeah.
and then they do it. They've done this insane thing. There's a guy, Mike Portnoy, who I guess used to be a drummer for Dream Theater, and they brought him in and to learn how to play a song by Tool called Numa, which is like an 11-minute epic, insanely complicated, amazing song, and he got to listen to that and chart it and stuff, and had to play it back in this session. So it's
Wow.
it's pretty incredible. But this documentary that I'm watching about Phil Collins, who I love, uh, really goes into not only him as as a singer and a hit maker, but really focusing on him as a drummer. And they have all these talking head interviews with drummers, and it's like they all kind of sound the same in a way. Not saying like, they're not original or unique, but they kind of they're all kind of approaching the drumming or whatever, like in the same way. They'll it could all be one guy. It's
Hmm.
kind of same. It's like, oh, you're a drummer. Like you guys are kind of all the same. At least
So
that's
there's
what I'm getting. Like the way that they're kind of looking at, like the drummer from Marilyn Manson looks just like the drummer from so and so, and I'm sure they could switch parts and stuff. I'm probably simplifying it, but there was just something there where I was like, oh, it seems like these guys talk a certain way. These guys talk a certain way. I wonder if they view the world in a particular way, and that's getting back to sort of like
Yeah.
the mathematicians.
Yeah, it's funny, I wasn't really a math guy at all, and I was sort of a reject from, the humanities, actually. Like, I was studying English and history and French literature in college, and I wanted to be I basically wanted to be a literature professor of some kind. But it was the crazy identity stuff that actually really messed with my head,
Mhm.
postmodernism in particular, deconstruction, and stuff like that. I just I began to sense that it was all kind of weirdly performative, and the truth wasn't really, or even enjoyment of the text, like, wasn't part of, it was actually frowned upon. It was also seen as childish and kind of cringe to even say that you loved a book because it related to your personal life and you
Right.
thought that it had, like, all the things that are why people read and love books were totally irrelevant to getting a, it was actually worse than irrelevant. It was seen as, embarrassing if you talk like that. And so, like, I just, I felt really sort of disillusioned, and I kind of wandered, and I went to San Francisco and worked at the Federal Reserve Bank for a while, and, um, you know, kind of really got lost in my 30s. And then, um, I was, I just sort of at the wit's end. I had to go back to learn some skill that could make me money because I had no money. So I studied. Got a degree at Hunter in educational psychology, and I started to get my life back together. And I got into teaching and math in particular. Like, started to. I remember I loved math in high school, and so I kind of found my way back there because in math, for your question, um, all of the swirling confusion and subjectivity in postmodern, like, all that doesn't exist. Like, you will find people that will say that also exists in math. Okay, but that's just like people trying to ruin something that
Right.
they haven't gotten to ruin yet. So like that was, I found real comfort in like exploring the objective beauty of something that was part of the universe. It was the laws of the universe, how the universe, merely patterns of numbers, there are these incredible, beautiful things about them. And I got into teaching math. I started teaching in 2011, 2010. I had done some SAT prep work and stuff to get my feet wet. And then I taught at some failing schools in Brooklyn for a little while. Then I got the job at the fancy private school because I kind of had that Ivy League pedigree that they look for, very elitist.
Oh,
And
where'd you go?
Cornell, and I could put together, my life was pretty much in shambles, but I was able to sort of cobble together a little story, with some enough professional experience and academic, laurel wreaths from way back to sort of be, because they're just looking for a teacher they can package for the parents that are going to shell out all this money.
Right.
Is this
Right.
person a legit elite? Is he going to, beyond that, they don't, as long as you don't cause problems for the administrators of the school, they don't really care. Like,
Uh-huh.
this idea that somehow they're going to, anyway, but I really, I just loved it. I took to it. I enjoyed the kids. I enjoyed teaching. I had a rocky couple of years, but then once I found my pedagogical style, like it kind of went pretty well. And I wasn't half bad. So, but then, all this other stuff started to happen. I started to see it. I started being expecting to teach it. I focus on identity, race, this idea of you can um, transition to other gender. Like all this stuff started to be part of this got thicker and thicker and thicker. And then because of that love for objectivity that got me into math in the first place, my breaking point was, it was almost destiny. Like it was a meeting where some 20-something Barnard graduate was lecturing the kids that objectivity didn't exist. And I was
Oh,
just like,
yeah.
that's white supremacy to say that objectivity exists. And that was it. Like that was the breaking point. I was like, I did that thing where I just unmuted on the Zoom because it was all on Zoom, but there were hundreds of people in the Zoom, teachers. This was a whites only Zoom, by the way. And I was like, more or less, I was like, no, like I'm not going to let these kids hear this crap and that I'm going along with it because I'm not saying anything. Like, I can't go back in the classroom if I let this go, and they need to see that not all the teachers agree with it. So that started the whole cascade. I don't know when I went on your show first. Do you remember when it was? Was
Oh,
it before
it was
that?
while back. Let me see if I could,
'Cause this would have been like that started,
I'll see when I posted
you
it.
know.
Um, 3 years ago, I posted, let's see, 3 years ago, I posted it May 26th, 2022.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
this was like a year before that.
okay.
Okay.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So I had written the article that got some, attention. I'd gone on some podcasts by then. So yeah, but now I'm kind of happy that, I'm kind of like more obscure. Like I don't really, I'm not really involved in a lot of the political activism. I mean, still like it's important to me, but I got kind of burnt out of it. But
Yeah,
I
it's
just
just
do the teacher thing. Like I found like I just care about helping teachers get through whatever crap they're dealing with because that's kind of what I went through.
yeah, I'm definitely not the first person to point this out, but it is funny where, objectivity doesn't exist and, everything is, relative, yet white supremacy is wrong. It's like, well, wait a minute, like for one, I mean, the way that they define white supremacy is incredible. Like the belief in individualism and objectivity and showing up to work on time, and
Yeah.
all this stuff. It's like, well, for one, you're defining white supremacy as reality and really good characteristics to have as
Right.
a
These are
person.
virtues,
Virtues,
we came
exactly.
to the places.
Yeah.
And the kids hear this and that you expect them to complete an assignment on time? Like, are you insane? Like,
Right.
they're gonna be you're literally telling them it's immoral to complete your assignments on time,
Yeah.
and, like, you don't think that's gonna have a consequence in their development? And, it was just so cockamamie, um, and, it's funny that that whole characteristics of white supremacy thing, which is s everywhere, it's not just in blue states, red states, it's in urban areas all over the place. Um, that was that was written by a woman 20 years ago in, like, 1999 and 2000. Her name was Tim Oken, and she has a whole website about how she came up with it, and it was really just, like, she was one of the very early, early relatively, um, sort of community organizers in the Bay Area for the race or whatever. She's like, "I had a really bad day, and I went home and I wrote up this list." Like, there's no empirical anything behind it, just,
Right.
like, her own feelings. It was just like, she had a glass of Chardonnay and then just spat it out. And suddenly it's treated like gospel. It's in the Museum of African American History. Like, where did, she turned into a master's thesis in 2010, which I read, which is, you know, just ridiculousness, embarrassing. It's just, you know, br- there's nothing behind it except assertions made by other scholars without any empirical basis.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, there's no basis for this, like, and if you question it, well, you have to realize that scholarship is degraded now. So, like, it's based on, first it was quantitative methods. You had to have, very strong data analysis. Now it's qualitative, and then there's just lived experience. So you can simply just write about yourself,
Yeah.
basically, and that's considered, PhD worthy. So, like, everything, yeah, has degraded, but the credentials still seem to carry the same weight. So people, at all levels, academia is sort of degrading.
Yeah. Like Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay have often pointed out when look at like a paper like that and you look at all the sources that are cited, it's all people within the same field,
Yeah,
basically just you know regurgitating and jerking each other off.
right.
In the
Circle
there's
jerk.
yeah, circle jerk. There's no nothing empirical there. Um, yeah, and it's yeah, it's I had a guest on uh named Lisa Selvin Davis. My apologies. She's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Love
My
her.
apologies if I got your name
Lisa Sellen Davis. Yeah,
yeah.
she's great.
And we were talking about how when she went to college, she was like I think like a Marxist feminist something or another. And it's like, yeah, all these things, all these things just exist in the mind, and it's just you're thinking about it. Like, you don't actually have to do anything. You don't have to build anything. You don't have to, if you think that, uh, people experience time differently, or ethnicities experience time differently. So it's okay for brown and black people or Latinx people to show up late. It's like, well, when you're trying to launch a rocket, you have a thing called a window of when you're able to launch this fucking thing. And if you miss that window, well, then your rocket either doesn't launch or it ends up, just falling into the ocean. And it's like when you actually have to do shit,
Mhm.
you know, you got to throw this garbage away. You actually have to accomplish
Yeah.
something.
Well, why are we so phallocentrically organized to wanna make rockets, Lou?
Right.
Right? We need to really think about that.
Look, I'm a horny guy. If there was a way to, shoot something into space that looked like a pussy, like I'm all for it. Like I
Yeah.
wanna see it everywhere in my day to day in my daily life.
We need an orchid, like a
Right.
Jordan O'Keefe, yeah, or
Mm.
some
Yeah.
oval, propulsion.
Nice. That's a
No,
good way to put it.
I could write a PhD about that. You just froze when I said vulval propulsion, and then that
Well, I hope everyone caught that, the vulva propulsion before it happened. And then we had a little bit of technology, which I'm I'll try to blame on, some kind of postmodernist, uh,
Mhm.
person. What do
But
you think? Yeah,
but
what do you think the impact of AI is going to have or has had already on
ugh,
education? Yeah.
bad, very bad. I mean, actually, I won't say it's universally bad. In math, there's actually individual, tutors which can, like, if you're stuck on a math problem now, you can feed it to an AI that will walk you through, like, where your sticking point is, like, piece but slowly, like, "Okay, do you know about how to do this at the beginning of the problem? Okay, well, what would you do with this?" So, like, it's not giving you the answer, it's modeling for you how to think through the problem, checking where your sticking point is, and then hand-holding you basically through it. And,
Oh, do you mean unlike my Armenian friend's dad?
yeah, right.
Who's
Then you
just
feed
like,
it to
"You
her.
fucking Catholics, what the fu"
If you want, you can get a personality filter
Oh,
for it.
that would be fu oh god,
It
I
will
would
give
dude, I
you,
would his dad passed away,
whatever ethnic group or whatever
yeah,
religion.
his dad passed away, I think we're probably coming up on a couple years, and, oh god, I would love
But aren't Armenians Catholic? Weren't they, like, the first Catholics?
they're apostolic,
Oh,
so
okay.
I think it's their own thing, it
Eastern
might
Orthodox,
be
more
it might
Orthodox.
be closer to, like, an Orthodox,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think, yeah, they were one of the O the OCs, the original,
Those Yeah, they were the
the
first Christian nation, I believe, like
yeah,
300 something.
yeah.
But yeah, like, I'm sure that they don't feel good about the Western Catholics, the Romans Catholics.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
But, oh my god, the prospect of being able to, feed, uh, have, like, an AI version of his dad would be great. I think it must be harder be well, now I'm just wondering, like, there's so much material of me out there that, you could probably feed in, like, I got, tens of thousands of one-liner tweets and a book
Yeah,
and all these videos and stuff. I'm probably gonna be an easy man to, replicate. I mean, my wife often knows before I open my mouth what I'm gonna say, in any, situation. So, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
humbling, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It's like, "Oh, that"
We're so original, but yeah, there's
yeah.
just patterns. Yeah, no, and their wives know it. But, no, it's really generally, it's been very bad. Like, so a student can we used to have turn it in. So if you plagiarize something, there was actually a source for it. You could check
Mhm.
it. There were, companies. Now it's just AI. But, teachers actually, it's kind of obvious so far, like, what AI speak is. But now the AI, you can actually tailor the output of a prompt for an essay, for example, to be like, pitched at a certain grade level with a certain grade vocabulary. So,
Oh,
like, if
wow.
I say, give me a book report on crime and punishment, at the 3rd grade level," it'll actually give you, with using simple language and sentence structure, this thing, and and so it's getting. And, what's even crazier is that the teachers are now using AI to grade the papers. So, like, no one
Mm.
it's not touching human being's brain at any point in the life cycle. Um, and you have general grade inflation. So, you got lazy teachers, lazy students, inflating grades. So, like, there's a certain point where there's just no cognitive load happening. There's no actual, like, learning going on. And that, even to suggest to some kids now that you're depriving yourself, you need to know how to do this. And, well, why do I need to know how to do it? Um, and then, the prudes, or the clueless boomers, are now trying to explain why you have to be able to use your brain. Um, in the future, you won't have to use your brain.
Yeah.
So, like, it's really, really difficult to try to. I mean, I've had to defend the memorization of times tables. Why do I
I
need to
I used
memorize
to
it?
do that with my dad made us do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I know why, like, you have to do it,
Mhm.
because the if you have a higher order problem, it is and you don't know the times tables, you literally have to slow down, and by the time you figured out what 8 times 7 is,
56.
very good. you have lost. You've actually jumped. You've actually had to spend cognitive load on a lower order problem, and then when you get back to the actual higher order thing you're working on, you've lost track of what it is.
Mhm.
However, if you've automatized 56, then you don't like actually have to leave the cognitive space of that part of the problem.
Mhm.
Even if it's to go to a calculator, well, a calculator can do it. So like, and this sort of extends all the way up the line. And there's this idea that somehow we can skip the basics and we can just jump to expertise. That's not actually how it works. You have to know the basics. They have to be automatized within this sort of headspace of your own mind. Um, and you don't want it to be drudgery. You got to find a way to make it fun.
Mhm.
So like sometimes I'll have two students each come up with make a circle, and one student says a number, the next student says a number, the third one has to multiply them, then the fourth one has to multiply the last digit with the previous digit. And you just keep doing that, and then it's like a speed thing. And if you make a mistake, you're out. Stuff like gamifying things is really helpful. There's ways to do um, to teach things and to internalize things in better ways than the more
Yeah,
fun.
my dad used to, like, play, like, little games on the calculator.
Yeah.
So and these are games that he learned from, like, his professor. So he would be like, um, "What number do you wanna see?" "Okay, I wanna see all nines."
Hmm.
So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 times 81? And then it's like all
Oh
nines.
yeah, yeah.
And correct me if anyone out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have my calculator handy, but I remember that stuff being, being fun. And I do wonder if it's sort of like there's this thing that happens uh, with generations where you kind of just take it for granted the education that you had growing up,
Yeah.
where I'm able to say it, because I do comedy. Man, like what? I spent all that time on the times table? Like why? What a waste. And
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, so then if I feel that way, then I'm not going to teach my kids that. But yet, what what a great impact going over the multiplication table had on my development in academics, in problem solving, and in all this, and it just
Mhm.
and just not realizing that, and you see that a lot with literature as well. I mean, there's all these lists of like, here are 10 classic novels you don't have to read, and it's like, well, the person who wrote that read them,
Right.
and it's like
Right.
now you read all those, and now you're making the determination for people down the road.
Same thing with like, this focus on minority authors or black authors,
Yeah.
authors of color. It's like they want to read these James Baldwin, they want to read they want to read Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison. Like these people all read the classics. Like
Right.
they are educated in a way that now you're saying you don't need. You can just read
Mhm.
these people and then get your own get some idea of experience reflected back to you. And that's good. No, like you have to do what they did. You have read the classics because that gives you this incredible foundation for human experience. And so yeah,
Yeah.
um,
And when it comes to, people trying to make the argument, "Oh, you need to read more, authors of color," uh, it's often, it's oftentimes they're talking about, like, newer, authors of color, and it's like, "Well, hold on, wait, 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 wait.
yeah,
Before I'm touching your novel, I gotta read all of Baldwin. I gotta read all of Toni Morrison," and based on my schedule, it's gonna be a long time to, possibly never, that I get to read your new book about, being a queer, non-binary, person of color who, lives in Williamsburg. Like
how dare you?
I'm probably not, you know,
How
but I'm
dare
not.
you? How dare you ignore these great works of literature?
Right.
Yeah, but a lot of it is like they're just it's kind of corporate. Like you have these massive publishing houses, and then they're connected to the education
Right.
department, and there's budgets involved, and like there's librarians, and there's librarian conferences, and they're all connected, and they're all pushing this new stuff. So that's why you see this sort of avalanche of crap in the libraries and the marginalization of classics. You just can't make money off a classic, right?
Mhm.
You got hot new authors, and so we need eyeballs, and we need to sell those books. And so you get there. Unfortunately, it's like capitalism, right? Like, I love capitalism, but sometimes it's not always the best thing.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I've been thinking a lot about the marketplace of ideas, and how classic liberals, libertarians, and all sorts of people will talk about how important it is to win out, in the marketplace of ideas. And what I often find is that the loudest proponents of it tend to work for nonprofits. You know,
Yeah, right.
so it's like the it's like, yeah, you're talking about winning, winning out in the marketplace of ideas, yet you would be incapable of paying your
Right,
staff
exactly.
if you were doing
And
that.
these aren't real marketplaces, like, they're
No.
rigged, they're subsidized, they're regulated, right? Like, there's all this money coming from the education department, which is a federal expense and state expense, and local property taxes collected that have to go somewhere, and that money has to slosh around and affect certain parties. So, like, this is not really a free market. So it's hard to even conceive of what it would look like without all that stuff.
Yeah. No, it's true. But, until we get there,
Yeah,
I want people to, check out Terra Firma Teaching Alliance. I've enjoyed my conversation and my calculus lesson with Paul Rossi, and,
sure. We can make it a regular thing.
yeah,
Um,
you're gonna be my tutor.
sure.
You're gonna be my
Uh,
tutor.
yeah, discounted rates, friends and family.
There we go. Okay, I'm gonna end the
TFT
recording.
is
Oh,
the
okay.
tfteach.org is our website. So please go there if you want to. If you're a teacher in K-12, you want some support in what you're going through. Everyone's got a story. We are sort of a brain trust that can help you strategize on how to cope with what we're being asked to do. We want good teachers to stay in the profession, so that's what we're there for. Try to help you do that. tfteach.org.